Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Capital Spotlight. Today we are here with Alison Cheperdak. You are former staffer, worked on the Hill, worked in the administration, and now you are an author. You're also the owner of your own business, Etiquette. So welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So it's been really fun to see you're currently kind of doing your book tour of the Was It Something I Said book that you recently wrote. Just give staffers an overall, where did this book come from? Why are you doing this?
Thank you so much for that question. So my business is called Etiquette, which is a modern etiquette consultancy where I teach modern manners for life, work, and love and international protocol. And my business really started with sharing on social media, and things really took off to a point where I grew a pretty significant audience, and I was getting more and more speaking engagements, including around Washington, on the Hill, and the White House, and places like that. And I was finding that I wanted to provide a resource similar to one that I had used when I first got into etiquette, when I was planning my own wedding, because social media is wonderful, but it's not the best when we're looking for like an archive, if we're looking for an answer to a specific question right now. So what I wanted to do was create this book so that it could be read cover to cover, or you could flip to the page that has the answer that you're looking for right now.
Very cool. So when did you first get on this journey? I know it was like around wedding season, but tell us the story of what was the thing that made you think, this is important?
So it started when my husband and I were engaged to be married. I had just turned 22, and I had all of these wedding etiquette questions, like does every cousin get a +1, or who sits where, or how do I address this envelope? And so my mom recommended that I get my first etiquette book, which I did, which at the time was the Amy Vanderbilt Complete Book of Etiquette. And I thought I would just turn to the pages that had the answers I was looking for, and I ended up reading that first book cover to cover, and countless books since then on etiquette and protocol and emotional intelligence and these soft skills. And at the time, I was working as a TV news reporter and anchor, and then I went to law school, and I was practicing law and working in Washington in public service. And I kept seeing that all of these little things, like these soft skills, are really not that little in the aggregate. And I had an opportunity, like so many of us in Washington, after your boss doesn't get reelected, it's like a inflection point naturally.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I was thinking, like, what are my gifts? What are my talents? How am I called to use them? And at first I thought development or fundraising in the political sense, because I love hospitality and bringing people together. And then I ended up getting a certification in British and North American etiquette, as one does. And even though that program was specifically for people to launch a business and to start teaching it, I wasn't necessarily doing it with that intention. I was doing it as like my own personal growth journey. It was something I was really interested in.
Nice.
And then as I was in the program, I saw other people that had these thriving businesses around the world. So for me, that was proof of concept that there is an audience out there that is interested in this material. And as it relates to social media, I'm of the view that you could follow any number of influencers or content creators in any niche or category, but you're only going to follow the people that you connect with. And I wasn't seeing anyone that was sharing the subject matter that I was interested in with my tone and tenor. And so I started posting, and then things evolved from there.
Very cool. What was the inflection point in that process where obviously you see, okay, it's possible to get a proof of concept?
Yes.
Why did you decide to start creating social media content? Or what was that point where it really started to resonate for other people, where you go, oh, wow, this is working for me?
Well, I'm grateful that things started working pretty quickly. Like within a couple months, I had 100,000 followers on Instagram.
Jeez.
So for me, that
Yeah,
was...
this is casual.
Yes, and I will say, like, Instagram changes, social media changes, and so, like, I don't think anyone should be hung up on any particular number. But I was also thinking about, like, what would I do even if I wasn't paid to do it? And then also, what is something that my friends or my family are always asking me about? And a lot of it was like career strategy things, like whether it's like fine-tuning a resume, or like how soon is too soon to follow up on an interview, or like an informational coffee, or what is an informational coffee, like all these kinds of things. And I felt like I was really helping people, as trite as it sounds. And I also, and perhaps you can relate, being in Washington, it's such a relationship-oriented town where many people are not from here, and they're very self-made, even if they're not like what we might think of as entrepreneurs. It is a very entrepreneurial place where you need to keep reinventing yourself, especially if you're working for an elected official who's not going to be in office forever. And so I saw examples of so many people who were like really ambitious and really capable, but maybe didn't know that the way that they were advocating for themselves wasn't landing well.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of questions on that front. We're going to talk like general concepts of like how you got into this world, and then also like how this applies to Hill staffers. But before we get there, tell us about yourself a little bit. Where are you from? How'd you grow up? Like, we want to know you.
Thank you. So I grew up in New England, in Massachusetts and Maine, and then I went to Villanova University where I studied journalism and political science. And while I was there, I was really focused on television news. So interned at NBC, ABC, and Fox stations, and was a multimedia reporter, so like a one-man band for those who are familiar with journalism, at a local access station. And then I worked for a Hearthstone NBC station in upstate New York, which covered the Plattsburgh, Burlington, Vermont market, and was there for a few years, and I was covering general assignment. So that means a little bit of everything. Yeah. And I found myself most attracted to legal stories and political stories. And so that's what motivated me to go to law school. And I was grateful to get into school in DC. I went to the George Washington University Law School. And while I was there, I was thinking that I would become like a legal correspondent. And then I got to law school and I realized there's just so many cool things you can do with a law degree that I hadn't thought of before. And so I found myself on the Hill as a law clerk during school. So I was on the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, and then Senate Judiciary, Senate Commerce, and then House Ways and Means. Nice. Yeah, it was great, and I was very lucky or grateful for the timing of it all, like being on Ways and Means during tax reform, being on the Commerce Committee when a lot of activity was happening that summer in the first year of the first term of the Trump administration. And I was on the Judiciary Committee when a lot of the big confirmations, like, Jeff Sessions and Neil Gorsuch and folks were getting confirmed. So I was really grateful for the timing of it all. And then I clerked for the then chairman, Ajit Pai, of the Federal Communication Commission. And then I graduated from law school, worked in big law at Baker Hostetler in their DC office in the commercial litigation group, and then was there for a little while, and then got recruited to join the Treasury, where I was an attorney advisor to the general counsel. And then from there, I went to the White House, and I was the assistant staff secretary in the West Wing to President Trump in the first term.
Very cool. It's quite the resume.
Thank you. And so I was there until the end of the first term, and then I clerked for a judge at the Court of Federal Claims that President Trump put on the bench. And then after that, I moved over to the March for Life, where I started as director of development, because I was thinking, like, development is the next thing that I want to do. Because I will say, I respect anyone that works in any White House, and after that, I think some people, it's not the easiest transition to go from like the West Wing to not, and it sort of feels like a crash landing. I was grateful to have the experience of clerking, because clerking is sort of like a reset moment where you can do a lot of things after that. Or it doesn't close doors the way that some other things might. So I was clerking, and then I was working in development first, and then became the executive director of the March for Life. And it was while I was there that I pursued this certification in British and North American etiquette and started posting online, and then got to a point where it was like, I don't think it makes sense to be doing both of these things at the same time.
I'm sure it's just as busy now as it was when you worked in politics, but is it like almost a relief not to be in the daily grind of politics anymore?
That's a great question. I would say I've never worked more in my life than I am now, but it's different. And it's very self-directed. Like, yes, there are deadlines. Yes, there are challenging moments. But I choose to keep my pedal on the gas, I think, more than I need to, but I choose to. But it is very refreshing to have more control. Like, for example, like, and maybe this is like because I have so much experience with, like, having to have a document approved. Like, I worked in the staff secretary's office, which manages all of the president's documents, and so you're basically like the nerve center, or like you receive a document and then you have to think about, okay, who needs to have their eyes on this? Who needs to be able to make edits before it gets to the president's desk? And so you're circulating the document and you're accumulating track changes, and then you're eventually delivering a final copy that's supposed to be pristine to the president, and then answering any questions that he might have. And there was something really liberating and really refreshing about being able to just press send. Like, no one's going to comment. It's just going out there into the world.
You offended some diplomat.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter. That's crazy. So tell us a little bit more about your role in the White House, because what kinds of documents? Is it every document? Like help us explain just the things we're going across your desk.
So it's every document. So it's executive orders, it's briefing materials, it's pocket cards. So like the card that the president would have in his pocket that has everybody's names on it and the pronunciation. It's legislation. It is speeches. It's even op-eds. So like op-eds that the White House might have equities in, or like a op-ed by any other cabinet member, things like that. And you would rotate. So I was not the only one in the office. And so like one day I would be on speeches, and then the next day I would be on op-eds. And then, the next day I would be on executive orders or something like that. And you're basically taking a document that's close to final that you receive from like the speechwriting team or from another component of the White House or the administration, and you want to think about like who are the people who always need to see everything before the president sees it, and then who are people that have subject matter expertise in this particular area that should also be seeing this. And the goal here is not to present a document to the president where you say like this was the first draft and this was the second draft and then this was the third. You just want to deliver the final document that he can be really confident in.
Was he then giving edits and the whole thing starts again, or was he?
Oh yes,
good?
Always with a black Sharpie. I mean, and it was funny. There was really no rhyme or reason other than like certain things you would expect, like a State of Union address or something like that. But it was hard to anticipate when he would have lots of edits and when he would like barely look at something. So you just had to be ready.
Wow, that's such an interesting job. I feel like that's got to be a whirlwind. How big was the team there?
There were about 6 of us.
Okay, that's a lot for everything that's going through the West Wing. Jeez.
Yeah.
Do you have any like fun stories in general of that time that you're allowed to talk about, or that were moments in the crunch time, or just special occasions that were like really stuck out to you?
Oh, that's such a great question. I would say I always loved like the Medal of Honor, the Medal of Freedom ceremonies. Because the people who are receiving those honors are just so joyful and is so appreciative, and it's not just them, it's like their family and their friends that all get to be there. So those were some really special moments. And then also the naturalization ceremonies, so when people become American citizens, so special. So those are some that I think of.
How did you guys track all of the different outbound, inbound memos or pieces of material going on? Like, was there a system in place? Or
Yes. So there's one email that, like this, I don't know if I should share it on, in the context of a podcast, but there's one email that everyone in the office would have access to, and then we had a rotating schedule. So, and we would have it so that anything that came in between 12 a.m. and 11:59 p.m., that was like whatever you were assigned to for that day was yours. So, for example, if the speechwriting team, if they submitted something at 11:58 p.m. and you were on speeches that day, then that would be your speech, and you would carry it to its completion no matter what day the speech actually happens on. But if that speech comes in at 12:03 a.m., then it's whoever is on speeches the next day.
Sounds great. Did you have, I don't know, my mind goes to Asana on this, but it's like, did you have some sort of management platform, or is it all just like, this is my email, these are the things I'm working on?
We did not use Asana. We did not have any kind of management platform like that, but I've never received more emails in my life, because you're also getting lots of emails about like news clips.
Yeah.
And President Trump is in a lot of news clips. Probably no one in the world is in more news than him. But you're so dialed in all day that it wasn't as hard as you might think.
Okay. I don't know if I believe you on that one. Maybe you're just extremely confident, but I don't know if I could handle that. But I know that feeling, especially in like comms, where there's something going on. You have
and it's
to
interesting,
figure it
like
out.
you're setting deadlines and you have a sense of everything that's active, and so you would look at like this speech is happening on Friday at noon, and so I'm anticipating like maybe it's not controversial, maybe it is. So you might think this is going to need multiple rounds of edits, and if you are suspecting that, then you would create a shorter deadline so you could have more time to collect track changes and then send it back out and send it back out again.
Very cool.
But if it's not as controversial, or if it's like a speech that he's given kind of a lot, but just to a different audience, then you could give folks more time to take a look at it.
Okay. Very cool. Wow. What skill sets have you seen, like your time on the Hill and your time in the administration, that you've brought on to being an entrepreneur now? Like, what set you up for this?
Something I love about people who work in politics is that they are often very gregarious and very aware socially. I think that the emotional intelligence level is higher than average, likely, in the political space, and I find that's very helpful as an entrepreneur because you're constantly like advocating for yourself. I will say it's been interesting also, like I think having a personal brand is not something that I sort of had as a television news reporter and anchor, but not to the degree that I'm doing now. And I certainly did not have a personal brand as I was working in public service for another principal, but I did have visibility into others who did. And so I think having access to seeing what that looks like for others has been helpful in terms of understanding what it should look like for me now. And then I also think, and this doesn't answer your question exactly, but I will say having experience with media, both as a journalist and then also working in the government and understanding the news cycle and different outlets and their tone and tenor and how they operate and what their priorities are has been really helpful.
For sure. And, you know, being a one-man show as a reporter and having to do the packages and all of that, you are the editor, you are the producer, like you do it all. So I feel like that sets you up well to kind of take over your own brand and run with it because in some way you've already done a lot of that and you have the tangible skills necessary to be your own press secretary or be the one keeping track of all the inbound correspondence that you have going on. So I'm sure it's very helpful.
Yeah. And I will say, I think folks in Washington are generally very good about reaching out and staying connected with people, and they're not afraid to ask for help and to give help. And all of those things, I think, have set me up well.
So being in a lot of kind of high-profile circles in politics in D.C., what were some of those faux pas that you would see members of Congress or staffers or whoever it was kind of fall into in those conversations or events?
I think one of the biggest ones is letting your ego or your excitement take over. And when people are stressed out about, like, you just have to remember, like, everyone is a person and everyone is deserving of respect. Yes, there's such things as protocol that you want to be following, but when you seem like starstruck by a senator and then you treat the staff assistant like you don't have the time of day for them, it's a really bad look, and people see that. So I would say that's number one. And then another thing is if you are trying to, especially if you're early in your career and you're trying to establish yourself as like someone with gravitas and someone that can be trusted, don't treat your experience like it's like a field trip or like you're like starry-eyed all the time. Like, don't be asking for a selfie with your boss. You want to come across as like cool, calm, and collected. Yeah. And of course, there's like a line there because it's great to show that you're excited, but you also want to show that you belong and that you think that you belong.
For sure. So maybe I'm hypercritical on this one. I want to get your opinion because I've seen it happen plenty of times with interns especially, or like younger staff people, but there's been times where we've been on the Hill. You know, we're going office to office, letting them know about Connect, and we'll have a staff member or see like some intern on the Hill like run up to AOC and be like, hey, can I have a selfie? Like, is there, obviously that's not appropriate, right? But is there ever an appropriate time or like a more polite way in which to be in a situation and still say, hey, can I have a picture with you or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that interrupting someone is not the way to go, but when you're having a conversation with them, it's kind of like a business card. Like, you don't just ask someone for their business card without establishing some sort of rapport and some sort of conversation. And ideally, they offer it, but with a picture, people are most often not going to say, like, would you like a picture of me or a picture with me? Some might, but if you have, like, somewhat of a conversation and then you say something like, I'd love to get a picture, would that be okay? They will likely say yes.
Yeah. Okay, I have another kind of off the rails question, but you know, just coming off of Masters weekend, there's been like a lot of content online about people with their phones out. Yes. And like not understanding the like weight of the place you're at. Where are you at on this whole situation?
So I actually wrote about the Masters and their etiquette rules and how it's really interesting, but there's a lot of strict rules there. I think that the place that you're at should be respected, and what's special about the Masters is that it is sort of like this timeless experience, and they request that you don't have your phone. So they even say beepers, I think, in their rules instead of pagers. I don't know how many people travel around with those. And they're really specific about when you can take pictures versus when you can't, and no running, and like when the applause should be and all that kind of thing. But I think wherever you are, whether it's the halls of Congress or it's in Augusta at the Masters, you should be respectful as a guest or as a patron of the forum that you're in.
For sure. All right. I have a lot more questions. Those will come later. I do want to understand like the genesis of the business as well a little bit more. So
Sure.
As you start to post on social media, was there a specific piece of content or anything like that that really just blew up that push you down this road of 100,000 followers very quickly?
So I did not have one moment or a few moments that absolutely blew up. It was more of like a steady climb every single day. But I did have a few that have stood out. Like one was on how to write thank you notes.
Oh.
So it's just like the basics of what should be in a thank you note. And it's interesting that the style of video that I did then would not land well today, but at the time it was working, like the talking to camera, the like listicle format. And then I had another one, which is interesting because I posted like a different iteration of it today, which was the things you might think are polite but actually aren't when you show up at someone's home. So things like don't arrive early, don't insist on helping even when the host says that they're all set. Don't stall. Like if a host says that the meal is ready and you're welcome to help yourselves, often people are like, well, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be the first one. But the host is like, I want you to eat this food while it's hot and actually tastes good.
Yeah.
So when they say you can start, they really mean it. And then another one was not asking someone's preferences. Like let's say you're helping in the kitchen, ask them what goes in the dishwasher and what they like hand washed and that kind of thing. And don't just assume that they like to do things just like you do at home.
I feel like some in-laws could figure that one out too. But that's great. At least looking at your content, it just really does resonate. I think you have a really good eye for, how people are creating videos right now and sticking to those trends and making it your own as well. How much time are you dedicating to it now? And was it similar when you first started? Was it heavier then? Help us explain the content curation side of it.
So I've always been very focused on content, but what that has looked like has evolved over time. So in the beginning, I was posting as much as I possibly could, which I kind of to an extent am now. And I was very focused also on engaging on other accounts. And I was trying to create this archive because I had this belief in my mind that eventually I would go viral, and that whenever someone came across my page or came across a video, I didn't want them to think of me as like a one-hit wonder. I wanted them to find my page and then just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And so my goal was bingeable content. And that's what I sought to put together.
Yeah.
And then I like to have a balance of engaging on other people's accounts. Now I have so many DMs that I'm more focused. I prioritize DMs over engaging on others' accounts, but I do try to do a mix of it because I do think it's important, especially like I'm holding myself out there as someone who's like kind and supportive, and so it's important that I'm kind and supportive of other people's accounts too.
For sure.
So I do focus on that, and then I'm always saving ideas of folders of whether it's like audio trends I want to use or trending concepts more generally, and I'm always thinking of things that I want to do next.
Where are you getting your inspiration from? Are you getting DMs where it's like, hey, can you help walk me through this? So
Definitely.
What's the normal process?
So I get a lot of DMs. I get a lot of questions in the comment section of posts. I see posts that perform well, and so I think, how can I iterate on this or share it in a different way? I have posts that have performed well in the past that I try to reimagine, or I'll just post exactly the same because I think like I've got 10,000 new followers that weren't here last weekend, so why not? Not that I post something again in 7 days, but if some time has passed, I'll repost high-performing content, and that's basically the process.
I think what you do really well too, and it goes into your general concept, is it's social media content that you don't feel like you're just rotting away watching it.
Thank you.
Like you feel like you're actually learning something that can help you contribute towards society. So, there's a lot of bad content out there these days, or bad content produced well. So it's very nice to see like well-produced content that is actually helpful for people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I try to have a mix of like things that are more relatable, things that are more polished. It's important to me that people don't associate etiquette with any sort of monetary wealth or formality, because while it may apply to those scenarios, it doesn't apply exclusively to those scenarios. So I try to show etiquette in all aspects of life.
Very cool. What type of clients do you typically work with? Are they individuals or businesses? What does it look like?
It's a mix, but it's often businesses, universities, organizations that have an interest in their emerging talent. So like first-year associates, junior associates, interns, but then also like C-suite folks that are interested in executive presence, or people who are not from the U.S. that are working in more diplomatic realms, that are looking for protocol and guidance in that area too.
Have you ever dove into like other cultures and their etiquette procedures?
A little bit. So I often have folks that are traveling to Asian countries for the first time on business. So they're interested in what do they need to know real quick before they offend someone going to Japan for the first time.
Sure. Very cool. Any tips? I know people love Tokyo these days. So when you're going to Tokyo, any quick tips?
Be ready to bow early and often. And I will say it's an extremely respectful and also collectivist culture. And perhaps some folks, like I remember seeing this on the Hill, like if you're given a business card, you want to hold it with two hands and you want to look at it before you put it away. Definitely never write on someone's business card in front of them. Don't put it in your back pocket, because that's seen as disgraceful, as like sitting on their business card. Yeah.
It's very cool. Japanese culture is so interesting. Like the thought process behind all these little things that we just don't even think about.
Yes, and be prepared for larger groups in meetings. It's more of a collectivist decision-making process versus in the U.S. where it's more unilateral.
Very cool. Who do you see engaging with your content a lot? Do you see trends of it's like DC-centric, or are you pretty national or international at this point?
It's international. It trends the areas in the world with the highest English-speaking population. So like Mumbai, India, I think is my third biggest city.
Wow, very cool.
I didn't go to Mumbai for my book tour, but...
Next time.
Yeah, next time.
There you go. All right, let's talk about the book tour. Or first, how did you decide, okay, let's take it from, going to start my own business, going to create content, to we need to have a book?
So I've always wanted to write a book, and I didn't necessarily know that it would be about etiquette, but I had a publishing house reach out to me in the fall of, 2023, and I knew enough about the publishing world to know that if you're working with a traditional publishing house, that it takes a while, so you might as well get started.
Yeah.
And so I started the process then, and that first publishing house ended up actually not working out. And maybe this would be helpful for this audience to know. It was because of my political background, but I didn't see that as a bad thing. I thought it was a good thing to know that before I signed a deal and worked with someone that wanted me to remove my political past from my biography. And so one of the acquisition editors from that publishing house, who I thank in my acknowledgments because she's amazing, she helped me find a literary agent who ultimately helped me get a deal with HarperCollins. And it's usually about 1.5 or 2 years between signing a book deal and then having your book in stores.
Yeah, that requires a lot of patience. How long did it take you to write the first draft?
So it's a tough question to answer because I wasn't writing nonstop. It's more like... Well, I would say it took like 2 months or so, like a couple months, but then you're continuing to revise it and work with editors on it. My book is 75,000 words, which is pretty typical for a book of this size. I'm told that anything more than this is intimidating and readers don't want to read it, so this was kind of the limit. But I did end up, I went from like, oh my gosh, how am I going to write this much, to, oh no, I wrote double the amount that I needed to. But what was really nice about working with editors is that they make recommendations of like, hey, maybe don't include this, or we're going to put this all in like individual Word documents that you can save if I want to use them for like a PDF, for a speaking engagement, or for another book down the road. So that's what we ended up doing.
Very cool. What hand did you play in the presentation of the book, like the graphic design and all of that?
So I had some ideas in the beginning. What my publisher asked me to do was to present some ideas of book covers that I liked, both with my face on it and without. The psychology around book covers was very fascinating to me. So at first I was thinking I'll put my face on it and I'll, like, my audience will see it at Barnes & Noble and then they'll buy it. But what I learned is that unless you were like a super celebrity, when you put your face, or when anyone puts their face on a book, that you narrow your audience, because as much as we don't want to believe that we judge a book by its cover, the data suggests that we do, and that people will think that I don't look like them or I don't want to look like them, and therefore I won't connect with the message within the book. And so my picture is very intentionally on the inside jacket, and not so people can find it, but you're already like bought in and interested, I think, if you get to that part.
I think it looks great.
Thank you.
You know, very simple, but good colors that stand out. Good job.
Thank you. Like, the advice or the request that I made was that I wanted it to look as pretty as fiction, even though it's nonfiction, and I wanted it to stand out, and I really didn't want it to seem like stuffy or elitist or overly formal.
Yeah, great job. Can we get into a little bit more practical advice now when it comes to, you know, my mind goes to Capitol Hill, obviously, and a lot of our audience is there. So first off, coffee chats, reaching out to people, showing up, following up. Tell us a little bit about things that everyone should know in that process to come off as polite and put together.
Great. So if you are reaching out to someone about a coffee chat or an informational coffee, you want to be kind, you want to be specific, and you want to be deferential. So when I say kind, like, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. I would really appreciate if we could get together. Being specific, you want to share exactly what you're interested in talking about. Like, is it a certain office? Is it a certain committee? Is it a certain issue area? Is it the Senate versus the House? Is it going to law school? Is it graduate school? Is it you have some mutual connection, someone recommended that you reach out? So it's not, I am emailing everyone I possibly could to see who can go to coffee with me. Because especially if someone is busy, and the reality of being on the Hill is I think you get more requests for coffees on the Hill than perhaps any other place. And so the person that you're reaching out to, they want to be helpful, and the more you can brief them on how you can be helped, the easier it is for them to say yes. And they're thinking, I don't need to prepare for this. I can easily tell them why I went to law school at night while I was working on the Hill and what that was like, or something like that. So be really specific instead of saying, like, may I pick your brain? And then be deferential in terms of how the person responds. So don't be demanding, like, it must be next week or it must be in person. Maybe it's on the phone right now. You know, maybe it's down the road. Keep the door open to continue the conversation.
For sure. What about if you email someone, they don't respond, you really want to meet with them? What does follow-up protocol look like for you? Where's the balance of persistence and just being annoying?
I see no problem with following up. If someone follows up with me, I generally appreciate it. But you, again, want to be really deferential, and don't follow up, like, don't send an email at 9 a.m. and follow up at 5 p.m. The following week on a Friday. I think Fridays are a good day, Friday afternoon. People's inboxes are slowing down more. And just, you know, say, wanted to make sure you saw this. If it's a busy time, if it's not a good time, I certainly understand. If there's anything new in your life that's a relevant update, you can share that. Or if there's something really exciting is happening for them, like maybe something that you're reading in the news, that could be a natural time to just say, like, I was thinking of you as I saw this piece in, you know, wherever you saw it. I'm sure you're really busy. Would love to connect whenever you can, kind of thing.
Very cool. On the other side, like job interviews coming in, can you help us understand, like, that first impression aspect of it? Like, how do you want to walk in and present yourself in the process? And then also, post-job interview, what do you want to do?
So you want to dress for the job that you want, and not for the job that you want on a Friday in recess, but dress for the job that you want. Also, don't let that be the first time that you're wearing that nice suit or those new heels. You want to feel really comfortable. You don't want to feel like you're wearing a costume or someone else's clothes. And be kind to everyone. So every single person that you encounter, learn how to shake someone's hand, look them in the eye, thank them for their time, follow up with an email the same day as your interview, unless, let's say, you work on the Hill already and you're able to hand deliver. But I still prefer emails, because emails can easily be forwarded, and you want your kind thank you note to be forwarded to other people to say, you know, hey, remember this person that we met with, you know, earlier today, this is what they had to say, or, you know, it's just a good thing to have that.
When do thank you notes come into play? Like handwritten thank you notes.
Handwritten thank you notes, I don't love them in a job interview, just because I like that they can be sent easily, but maybe after you get the job, I would definitely send handwritten thank you notes to anyone who helps you to get the job.
Yeah,
so that someone who is not, say, in a direct decision-making role, but they vouch for you or they help you, for sure send them a handwritten note.
So one thing I'll say, I think you're right on the email side of things. Once you get to like an interview with a member of Congress, I feel like that's a really good place for you to follow up with a handwritten note, because
Agreed.
it is more about that like extra touch with
Absolutely.
the principal. And I've seen that change a principal's decision on who they hired just based on like the thoughtfulness of a note. Granted, like it almost swayed it in the wrong direction, but like it shows how much those like thoughtful moments go into helping you get the job.
For sure.
So I highly recommend on that side of things. When it comes to networking events, I feel like this, I'll get the main frustration out of the way.
Okay.
What are some conversation topics other than who do you work for? What do you do for work?
So I wouldn't start with that. I would say what brings you here, or how do you know the host, or how are you related to this organization, that kind of a thing. Commenting on things that you're experiencing in common, so whether it's the food or it's the architecture or it's the event that you're at. And then asking people more general questions like, where are you from, or like, what brought you to Washington? That can lead in different directions, but asking who do you work for or what do you do can come across as like, who do you know and how can you help me?
Yeah.
So that's why I don't recommend starting there.
Especially when you follow up that question with, if you don't like the answer, you just walk away.
Exactly.
It's so ridiculous. I can't believe people do it. It's not just an intern thing. Like, it is up and down the like seniority scale, which is scary, but sadly happens.
Yeah.
What are some other things that staffers can avoid in those moments of just like conversational topics? What to avoid? Let's go there.
So in a general setting outside of politics, I say money, sex, politics, religion, and health status.
Okay.
You can talk about politics in a political place. You can also talk about your religion when you're in these faith-focused environments. But things that are great to talk about are things like your hobbies, things that you genuinely enjoy. You don't want to be thinking like, what can I talk about that's going to make me sound really smart? That's not your top priority when you're having conversation. Conversation is about connections. You want to think about, how am I building this relationship? What is something that I enjoy talking about that this person would also enjoy talking about? That's more of a winning topic. So it can be things like restaurants, food, travel, performing arts, things you're looking forward to, traditions, where you're from, all that kind of thing.
Sidebar, but like, I think one thing that a lot of Hill staffers struggle with, because their schedules are very demanding and busy, is those side hobbies, things outside of work that they find interesting. How have you been able to balance that? Because you were a very busy person when you first got into etiquette, right? Like, how did you find the time or be intentional about developing side hobbies inside of that?
Well, I would say I've always been a big listener of podcasts and audiobooks and reading and fitness, so like, or faith. So I've always been kind of intentional in that way. But I think that at a minimum, if you're listening, reading, or watching something that you enjoy that you think would be interesting, you can talk about that. Or even if you're working in politics, it requires that you're not just read up on the news as it relates to your issue area, but also the news more generally. So if there's like pop culture things, or it doesn't even need to be pop culture, but just news of general awareness and interest, you can talk about those things too.
So what are some of your favorites when it comes to shows, podcasts? What are you listening to?
Oh my gosh. So for podcasts, recently I've been listening. I love Andrew Huberman.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. I also like the Goop podcast with Gwyneth Paltrow. I've been listening to Emma Grede recently. Okay. I've been really appreciating the podcasts that I've been on recently. So like the James Wilson Institute podcast I was on last week. I was on a couple of the Fox News Rundown podcasts recently, but I like to do like a mix of news, but a lot of like business development related.
Cool. Any ones in particular?
So I've been really into AI recently. So How I AI, I've been listening to.
Cool.
I've been learning a lot about Claude. The names escape me. The New York Times has a great one on AI.
Cool.
I was listening to an episode with Jonathan Haidt. Yeah.
He's the best.
Yes.
I want to get him on the podcast one day. That's how you know we've really made
Yes.
it. I feel like so much of the stuff he talks about, too, is so important to, you know, American politics. So I'd love to get there at some point. But, yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah, and he's not, you can't easily put him in a political box.
No, not at all. That's great. How are you using AI at all in like your business endeavors? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I use ChatGPT and Claude, and I'm trying to use Claude more efficiently. So Claude just came out with its new like Work Pro program, so I'm trying to use that more efficiently for inbox automation, and then also for helping me decide what to write where, because I write a lot of different places that have different tones to them. So I have a blog, I write on Substack, I have a column for EV Magazine, and then I'm writing editorials at the same time, and then I'm putting content together, and then I'm trying to repurpose things, but then make sure that it resonates with the right audience. So helping with those things too.
Jeez, you're doing a lot.
Yeah, and then another thing is just like, so the most intense part of my book tour is over, but I'm going to continue to travel. I'm doing about, 1 or 2 book signings a week at this point. And so with each city that I'm going to, I have this system of sort of rinse and repeat in terms of like, I'm going for a set event, but then I'll reach out to multiple bookstores and reach out to local media. And so AI is really helpful in putting together all of the emails of the folks that I need to reach out to.
For sure. Good. I'm assuming you're using these podcasts as kind of the way to keep up with all this, because I feel like, Claude's coming out with something new every single week. How do you keep up with all these new features?
So I have a web design person who is amazing, who helps me. Like I asked him last week, I was like, what are the best podcasts that I should be listening to? And he sent me 5. And so I've been starting to work my way through that. I will say that learning AI, I think when you're like really trying to start setting up a system for yourself, it's easier to watch the podcast on YouTube where you can pause it and you can make sure that you're doing things correctly. Many of these podcasts do have like a ManyChats automated DM situation where you can like comment success or something, and then they send you a PDF that helps walk you through how to set things up. But I also try to keep a log of like, what am I doing? And something that really frustrates me is if I am ever doing something that could be easily automated. So I have like a running list of like, kind of like a wish list of things that I would like some support.
It's like a fear I have at this point of like, is there something I'm doing that could have been automated? Like how much time am I wasting right now?
Yes, you're not alone.
Yeah. So it's the world we live in, I guess. It's a good thing to be able to automate all that, but it just feels like you can never keep up. Take us behind the book tour a little bit. What does it look like from your end? What are the logistics? How jam-packed is it?
So my book came out on March 17th on St. Patrick's Day, which meant that basically the whole month of March, like from January 17th to March 17th was really focused on a lot of media, and most of that media would come out the week prior to my publication week or the week of publication. And I was grateful to have that timing work out. Like you never know how things are going to work in the news cycle. So I was focused on actual news, social media. Social media is really important, and I was very intentional about reaching out to creators or people with significant audiences or audiences that I perceive would connect well with my subject matter. And so sending them signed copies of the book and making very specific asks of like, please post this book, please post this story, please post a link, and please do it on these days. And so, because you don't get what you don't ask for.
Yeah, for sure.
So there was a social media push, there is the news cycle. I also had 5 billboards in Times Square that were the first 2 weeks when the book came out.
Very cool.
And I did a mix of podcasts, television. I wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal. I wrote a piece for the New Hampshire Journal that was syndicated in 30 newspapers around the country.
Wow.
And that was interesting. And it was all about the art of disagreeing and how we've kind of lost this ability to disagree in an agreeable way.
For sure.
And it wasn't political in any way in terms of me sharing my own opinions, but I think it resonated with folks. I also partnered with Love Shack Fancy, a women's clothing store, and did book signings at a bunch of their stores around the country, and then also partnered with another women's clothing store, LaFleur, at their stores in Boston and in D.C. the nature of the way that bestsellers lists work is your first week of sales really matter.
Yeah.
It is possible to get on the list. Like C.S. Lewis was on the bestsellers list very recently, so it is possible, but your best chance or the most traditional way to get on many of these lists is your first week of sales, because all of your pre-order sales count as
Gotcha.
first week sales. And so that's why you see folks do lots and lots of events.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
They prioritize independent bookstores. And so that is what I did. But now all of that travel is the back-to-back-to-back-to-back travel of 2.5 weeks is over. And now I'm doing more, a couple trips a month kind of a thing.
What was your routine during that to keep you going, stay energized, stay focused?
There was kind of no such thing as a routine, but I embraced that because I knew that I was basically in one city per night. I had a colleague travel with me who was an amazing person to be with, who just has a standard of excellence and a really calm energy, which is exactly what I needed. And it was pretty go the whole time, because you're getting to a city, you're getting dressed, doing a book signing for 3 hours, and then trying to keep up with content and trying to have a balance of content, because not everybody wants to see 24/7 book tour content.
Yeah.
So trying to have a mix of things, and then you're on to the next city, and trying to be flexible with media. On the day my book came out, it was St. Patrick's Day. It was a little chaotic in a very happy way, but I found people RSVP'd pretty late for my New York City event. So the day before, and it was the day, I don't know if you remember, there were tornado warnings in DC, and the government got shut down that afternoon.
Okay, it got a little dark outside,
Yes. And so that was the day that I had to figure out how to get 60 books to New York City. So I had friends who took 60 books on a wagon on the Acela that Monday night.
Love that.
And then my book came out on Tuesday. I was on Fox Business in the morning. I had a Love Shack Fancy book signing in the middle of the day. And then at 1:30, I got a call from ABC News asking me to come on that night to speak to my Irish exit editorial that I wrote in the Wall Street Journal a few days prior. And it was fun.
It's got to be a relief to be coming off of that journey, but it had to be so fun, especially for the first book,
Yes. I'm really grateful. Really, really grateful.
Is there going to be another book one day?
Yes.
Cool.
I don't know exactly when or exactly what the topic is, but definitely yes.
I think, honestly, The Art of Disagreement would be really good. And I think we need to have a whole different conversation about that one day, but it just plays so much into kind of my frustrations about politics, and what we want to try to solve here is, of course we're going to disagree. We have to disagree.
Yes.
Unity of thought is not a good thing, right? So how do we disagree in an artful manner? And it has to be about mutual respect, or about knowing what you believe into, I think. So we've lost that, and I don't think our political leaders necessarily exemplify how to disagree in a just a good manner in general. So what are your thoughts on how staffers can kind of implement this into their daily lives right away? Of, all right, let me be friends with that staffer on the other side of the aisle. Let's talk about politics. How do we do it right?
I think reminding yourself that smart people can have access to the same facts and arrive at different conclusions. And not every conversation needs to be one where you're seeking conversion.
Yeah.
So, of course, there are times when you have an agenda and you have legislative goals and you're representing and advocating for your boss. And that's a different story in terms of what your goals are for the conversation. But when you're approaching a conversation where you're disagreeing with someone, I always invite someone to think about, what are your intentions? Are your intentions here to change someone's mind? Are your intentions to share some thoughts that they haven't thought of before, or share a perspective that they haven't thought of before? Is it your intention that they will associate someone with your opinion with being argumentative and combative and difficult? Probably not.
Yeah.
And most of us, when we think about all of the times when our minds have been changed, it's not because someone was yelling at us or they were rude or they were condescending. It's usually the opposite. And it's a very cool thing to think, maybe you could be the example of someone where they're like, wow, I totally disagree with them, but I really, really respect them.
Those are some of the most fun people to talk to,
Yes.
right? Because it's this intellectual challenge of, you're just going at each other, and you're not
Yes.
taking it personally, and so you're able to have these full-hearted conversations about something, and it's just so fruitful, because
Yes.
we don't get that much of it these days. And In my mind, that's what Congress should be, or what politics should be, right? Is this like high-minded debate, and no one's taking it too personally, but we've kind of devolved away from that.
Yes, and I also think it's important to be able to talk about the difficult things and also talk about the more frivolous things or the lighter topics, and be able to go back and forth and not treat every conversation so seriously, because building rapport on the lighter topics or the other lighter moments of connection are really important to be able to have those harder conversations well.
Yeah, for sure. So who's Alison behind the scenes? What are you doing? What's family life like? What do you do to relax? Tell us more about that side of you.
So I'm married. I've been married for almost 13 years now.
Nice,
and
congrats.
Thank you. My husband and I live in Georgetown. He is very into real estate, so we have renovated a lot of homes. The ones that we're in right now, or the one we're in right now, it's our third home that's more than 100 years old that we've completely renovated.
Wow.
And my family is from New England. I grew up going to school in Massachusetts, but every summer in Maine, and now my family spends more time in Maine, so I consider both places home. And what else can I say? I love to read.
Real quick, before
yes.
we go to the reading, are you guys the type that as soon as you finish a house, it's on to the next one? Or do you live in it for a little bit? Do you try to stay? Or
We
on to
live
the
in
next
it,
one?
well, a little bit of both, because it takes so long
Yeah.
to find. Well, Jason's always looking because he's in real estate sales, so he definitely has his finger on the pulse of the market. But we're kind of always looking. We're always looking or thinking about next steps, but I think we'll be in our current place for a few years.
Very cool. Nice. So reading, what do you like to read?
I like to read a lot of nonfiction. I'm trying to read more poetry. I'm trying to read more fiction. I will say that the process of writing a book has helped me grow in friendships with other authors, which has been fun. So it's also opened my eyes to reading more different types of books. But I really, really, really love to read and love to work out too, and just enjoy DC, go on walks around the city, things like that.
Very cool. Before we go, what else do you want someone to know about you? Or like what piece of advice do you want someone to know before we go?
Well, because this audience is largely folks who live or work in and around Washington, I would say don't take for granted all of the skills and experiences that you already have, because many of them are extremely transferable and unique, and they helped me to launch my career, my next era, if you will, as an etiquette instructor, but they're very helpful for you too. So I hope that, if nothing else, this conversation has been inspiring, even if you don't see yourself writing a book or working in this area.
Yeah, it's hard to understand how political skills translate sometimes, right? Because you get so siloed in this world that is so different from like corporate America. But at the end of the day, I think it does build a lot of skills that are especially transferable for people who want to be entrepreneurs, because you learn, especially on the political side, just like how to understand comms well, or how to dive into a topic. And a lot of times we're not sure how that fits into other places. And so I think like going off and doing your own things a lot of times can feel easier than fitting into the corporate world.
Yes, and also realizing that by working in such a historic place that's multi-generational, you have a gravitas beyond your years, often just by your learning about issues and reading into news that you might not otherwise at your age. So that's a really helpful thing too.
For sure. All right, where do people go to buy your book?
It's available anywhere books are sold. It's also available in a digital format and audiobook, which I read myself.
All right, there you go.
And you can connect with me at Elevate Etiquette on social media, at the Elevate Edit on Substack, and I think that's it. My website, elevateetiquette.com, and the book is Was It Something I Said? Everyday Etiquette to Avoid Awkward Moments in Relationships, Work, and Life.
There you go. All right, I have one more question before we go now.
Okay.
What was reading your own book like? How long did that take?
It was one of the most intense things I've ever done, and it took 3 days for me. And when I say that, I've never experienced anything that requires so much attention for such a long period of time. So I had a professional narrator that wasn't with me. I was listening to her on my headset, and then I had an engineer that was with me too. And every time it felt like a train went by, like, miles away, they'd make me stop and then have me start over. And it's so precise. What's wild about it is that I think many people will probably listen to this while they're like on a run or doing the dishes, but if you wanted to pay attention, there is an equal amount of silence in between every paragraph and every chapter heading. Like after you're done recording everything, they record the silence of the room, and then they insert that with great precision.
Wow.
Yeah, throughout the entire book.
I've always wondered that because I'm a big audiobook guy at the gym or something, and I really appreciate when authors read the book themselves because it does require so much time and energy to do so, and so they're making that sacrifice. So it's cool that you did it, but I've always been like, what does this process look like behind the scenes?
Well, I didn't think it was a major sacrifice on my end, but I will say I just really appreciated the people who do this day in and day out. And then there were lines in there that I just thought, why did I write this? This is so hard.
Yeah, because you read it all in your head and you're, oh, it sounds so good.
Yes.
And once you say it out loud. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking us into this world a little bit. And I've really enjoyed interacting with your content, and I'm sure our audience will as well.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into Capital Spotlight Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe to our channels to stay updated on new releases, share the show with your friends, and rate the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For more from Connect, subscribe to our daily newsletters, follow us on social media, and check out our website, all at Capital Connect, capital with an O, CNCT. See you next time.